This is my favorite shirt.
Wow.
Oops.
In this season, you are facing a new end of the world, but in the 60s. How does this impact on your character?
Well, I guess the end of the world and dealing with the end of the world is always a stressful experience, isn't it? Especially for these characters. But I guess the thing is as well is the figuring out of the whole thing is like, what happened this time? You know, like how did this happen again? You know, almost like the JFK assassination. It's like if that clearly there's something that goes on there that we somehow interrupted, and I guess the whole thing of the storyline this year is how we screwed it up, how we dealt with it, how we ended up in that situation. So what's interesting as well, I think, is how combined we've done that as well. You know, I think we all play an influence on it somewhere just by being there, you know, and the whole butterfly effect of what happens with screwing up a timeline so easily.
Ellen, at the end of the first season, we saw that Vanya has really strong powers. Will we see more about this facet of the character?
Sure. You know, in the second season, we see that, I think, you know, because Vanya at the end of the first season releases a lot, you know, clearly, of repressed anger, emotion, trauma. And so there's something in the second season, she's much lighter, she's happier, she can connect with people, she, you know, falls in love for the first time. And so her ability to relate to her power and control her power has really advanced. And so then we're seeing so many other things that she can do. So that's a big part of the second season. And, you know, hopefully if we're lucky enough to continue the show, we'll find that more and more.
Will Allison and Luther love story continue on season 2? Because I heard a rumor that there will be a new love interest. Emmy?
Yeah, I think exploring the Allison Luther love story, you know, in another season, I think moving on from that is kind of, I think, one, necessary. I think, and two, I think also they have all in theory lost each other in time. So I think you know. And, you know, I think Tom and I talked about this all the time in the first season, like the relationship between Allison and Luther, it was never really like lust related. I think it was always that they had a really deep connection as like souls. I think they just understood each other the most, and I think they got along the most, and I think they had seemingly maybe the best relationship with their father. Even that's debatable though, but I think they were kind of the favorites. He was number one, she was kind of the poster girl, and so I think they kind of found a camaraderie in that, and so I think, you know, I think there's always room for that friendship to grow and for that love of just, you know, who they are as humans to grow. But I don't necessarily think that, you know, there is a continued interest in like a love story about the two of them and for the two of them.
Ellen, there will be a new character named Sissy that will have a close relationship with Vanya. What can you tell us about this?
Vanya in this season, as I said, is much happier, and whereas in the first she couldn't even really connect with people, didn't really know how to. She does fall in love for the first time with Sissy, who Sissy and her husband Carl, complicated. They allow her, you know, they allow her to be in their home, and she's a nanny to their son. And they fall madly in love and experience a lot of beauty and joy, and also, you know, significant obstacles. It's the 60s, being LGBTQ is illegal. And, you know, their story is, of course, still relevant today. So, yes, that's, I'm just so glad that Vanya gets to fall in love, you know, despite the complications.
Tom, what were the biggest challenges in doing this season?
It was definitely, there was a lot more special effects, I think, in this season, which, you know, presents some challenges always, you know, because there's lots of green screen and stuff and lots of little elements. I'd say the biggest challenge we faced was we shot a lot of the season through the summer of Toronto, and then we started to go towards the winter. But in November, quite unusually, we got a massive snowstorm, which we had to basically shoot around in episode 10. And it actually turned out to be one of the biggest gifts we could have gotten actually for the show, because it looks amazing in the show. But yeah, then you obviously have to try and, the days that the snow disappears, you've got to try and match that in and stuff. So yeah, there was all sorts of issues, like costume issues and all that sort of stuff. That was probably the biggest challenge we faced as we went through the season, that's for sure.
Emmy, in the season 1, we saw how Allison refuses to use her power. Will this internal struggle continue in season 2?
Definitely, 100%. I think Allison's relationship with her power is really complicated. I think, you know, it is not a matter of conjuring the dead or having super strength or being able to time travel. I think hers, you know, having the ability to influence people's decisions is really, really tricky. And I think, you know, I don't think, you know, Allison in the first season or maybe in her whole life has kind of taken the time to understand that properly and you know, respect it and learn about it. I think she's, you know, has a really bad habit of using it for very selfish reasons and for, you know, personal gain. And so I think, and then when she does try to use it for good, I think it doesn't, you know, it doesn't always go the way that she planned. And I think that just comes with, you know, not taking the time to be diligent about understanding it. And so I think she's as amazing as it probably feels to have a superpower and be a superhero. I think it scares her a lot. I think it intimidates her and it makes her really nervous. And so I think that is something, even as a grown woman who's had this power for 30 something years, I think it still scares her. And I think the outcome of I think the boomerang or the recoil of how she uses it and how the cause and the effect of using it is something that always makes her really, really nervous. And so I think she's learning to be more cautious with it, because every time she uses it for, you know, a selfish reason, she loses something really close to her. And so I think she's starting to realize that it's not worth it until she can really understand it.